I've been given the okay by the CEO to make a very brief welcoming speech. I won't say too much. Looking at the chain here, there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of people who have done a fantastic job over many years. And as I mentioned earlier on, it's a great opportunity. You know, we've got a lot of responsibility around the table here over the next 4 years to pick up the good work that's been done before us and make the place an even better place. And as I also said, in local government, you can make a difference. So I really want to encourage everybody to bring those ideas to the table. It's not a race. We've got 4 years. We need to get on with some stuff now. But let's take a good measured approach and let's deliver a great outcome for on behalf of the people of the City of Prospect. Items on the agenda on leave, nil. Apologies, nil. Item 4, declaration by members of a conflict of interest.
Yes, I declare I've got a material conflict of interest with item 10.7, the annual community grants community support fund, as I'm a committee member of Prospect Local History Group subcommittee. And so I will, at that stage, I'll leave I won't leave the building, but I'll move far away so that I can fulfill that declaration.
Anyways, Councillor Becker.
Yeah, I too have a material conflict with 10.7 as a community member of one of the groups for grants.
Yep, I also have a material conflict just on item 10.7 as well, so I'll be leaving the room for the vote. Anybody else? Okay, all good. Item number 5, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, a seconder. Councillor Groot. I saw Councillor Groot first. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item number 6, public question time. So for the people who are sitting on their first meeting, we have a maximum period of 15 minutes total, maximum time of 3 minutes per person, and the presiding member may allow for an extension of time if appropriate. Are there any members of the public who would like to ask a question?
Oh, standing.
I can't do two things at once.
I thought you might have sent a proxy in.
Yeah.
Okay, that being the case, we'll move on to item number 7, petitions. There are nil. Deputations, there are nil, which is item number 8. Item number 9, questions without notice. Councillor Becker.
Yeah, just a quick one through the chair to the Director of Infrastructure, or the correct name. I've got to get it right. Well, I can't read it.
It's far away.
City Works.
Presentation.
City Works presentation.
Yeah.
Just the status of the calendar for street sweeping. In a previous council meeting, we had sought some clarification on calendar of street sweeping works.
Mr. Wayne. Through the mayor. That's live. There was an update provided at the last CEO update that went out. That provided a bit of a summary, but it's live on the website.
Is it? Okay. Thank you. My apologies for missing it. I'll circulate it to everyone who contacts me. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for that notice, Councillor Stanton?
Yeah, I don't know which director it is, Community Activities Director. Through the chair, are we having festive streets this year? The street party program.
Ms. Taylor.
Through there. No, not that particular campaign. The funding was cut for this budget. However, communities can still apply to have a street party under our street activity and events policy, and there is a form that they can fill out online. So we have received some already that we're supporting.
I'll just add to that through the chair. Is there a deadline and a deadline for that, and a limit to the number?
Yeah, through the mayor. Are you looking at something from Chris first? The deadline probably has passed, but I would still encourage them to contact us because the policy actually stipulates the 56 weeks before the actual event. But if they contact us, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you. Any more questions with that, Councillor Groot?
I've sort of come just following up on that one. Can I just confirm that there is no funding allocation, or can I ask if there is any funding allocation at all to that program? or whether it's simply administrative process to request that.
So I'll take
Just for
that.
clarity.
I'll take that one. There's no specific funding for Festive Streets this year. Members who were involved in the budget process last year will recall that a flat budget of $120,000 was set down for all events. That obviously includes Twilights and Spring Fair, both of which are very sizable events and eat up the lion's share of that budget. There is some funding remaining, which members had anticipated we would use for potentially another event or some smaller events. The applications that are received, given that they are under policy, do need to be funded and should be funded and will be funded from that balance. So it's not a specific budget, but again, in accordance with the policy, we will fund them out of the remaining events budget. And then whatever's left, and we do expect there to be some, we'll be looking to expend on another event or maybe smaller events for the remainder of the financial year.
Thank you. Just on another topic, it's been quite topical of late, the issuing of parking expiation, particularly on Highbury Street. And there's a fair bit of media on that last week. The question is, can we be provided with an update on the review process? I'm not asking for any details, but just in terms of whether those review processes have been concluded or not as yet.
Through the mayor, the review process, I understand it, is underway. The second review process in relation to the specific expiation, I think that you're talking about. I do not believe as of this morning that had been completed, so it's still underway.
Thank you.
Councillor De Backer, you have another question? Any further questions for that notice? No, we'll move on to item number 10, reports for decision. Elected members, there looks to be an opportunity to discuss items 10.1 through to 10.6 informally in order to help us reach a decision on various appointments. Is there interest in suspending meeting proceedings for, say, 45 minutes if we need that much time? If so, do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, Councillor Nelson, second. All those in favour, we need a 2/3 majority. All those in favour, excellent. Okay, so I'd like to suspend meeting proceedings until, well, this clock, 7:57. This one says the same thing. Excellent. Okay, so we had a discussion about this morning, and what we'll do is we'll go through each of the items and we can have a discussion around the item, question and answers. Then we'll be looking for nominations for positions. If we have a nomination, if we have nominations but we're not oversubscribed, we can simply note that and then we'll vote on those items. If we do have to go to a vote, then we will do that. And so let's start with 10.1. So appointment of deputy mayor. Is there anyone around the table who is considering nominating or would like to nominate someone?
I'll nominate
Councillor
someone.
Stanton?
I would like to nominate Councillor Mark Groot.
I guess I would ask whether you would accept that nomination, Councillor Groot. Okay. Do we have any further nominations around the table? Looking forward to a secret ballot. Okay, great. Well, thank you for the nomination and thank you for accepting. So we'll put a tick next to that one and move on to item 10.2, the City of Prospect Audit and Risk Committee. So we need, where are we? How many positions have we got here?
Two.
Councillor Nguyen, we're out of session, so.
We're out of session.
Yeah.
Okay, just with that recommendation, there was two parts.
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, sorry, yeah. So the second part was for a period of X number of years. So in the past, it's open for discussion, and I think we should have a discussion about that. We've had different models in the past. We've had year by year by year. We've had a year, a 2-year term, and a year. So can work either way. I'm interested in getting everyone's thoughts around the table as to what they would like. Councillor De Backer.
Look, I'd be in favour of doing 12 months. I think we've got a brand new council and I think it's a really big opportunity to sort of share the learning and share the opportunities, and we might not be ready this year, but I'm sure a few of us might want to have a go in years to come, and I think that will also reflect the diversity of the council as well. Opportunity to support 12 months.
Yeah.
I also support Councillor Groot in his first term.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts that vary from that? If we're all
I was
happy
going to
with,
suggest 6 years, but that would be wrong.
I don't think I can
Not
do
that
that.
way.
So if we're happy, if no one's against looking at this annually, then I'll mark down that we're going to look at that for a period of 1 year. Thanks, Councillor Nguyen, for picking that up. So now on to item 10.2, Audit and Risk Committee. So I'm sure it says here that we have two. Councillor, and we also have to look at the term of the appointment as well. So as the mayor is typically on this, because I think in the papers it said the mayor was one of those positions. Yep, correct, yeah. Okay, so we're looking for someone else to nominate to be on the Audit and Risk Committee. Do we have any nominations?
I haven't got a nomination per se, but I'm just wondering whether it might be easier for people to decide whether they want to take it on or not. If they knew what the term was.
Yeah, I think in the past it's been for a 4-year term,
I think
12 months,
Yeah, it's certainly, and I think that
yeah,
same thing.
same thing.
yeah.
If it was that case, I'd be interested in nominating.
Okay, so we'll take it that the term's 1 year. So on that basis, Councillor Tobacco,
I'm interested, but I'm not going to die in a picture.
Yep. Anybody else? Is everyone clear on what the responsibilities are of being on the Audit and Risk Committee? Okay, I'll take it as a yes. So would anybody else like to nominate? I think I saw-
I nominate, I'll quite happy to dive in. No, I'm not going to be on it.
Yep.
You do know, yeah.
Councillor Nguyen, did you also?
That to nominate Councillor Hunt.
Okay. So at the moment, we've got 2 nominations. So we have 2 nominations. Okay, so we'll have to take a vote on that one. Great. All
We're
right,
at 2 nominees. So we're William and
Councillor Tobacco and Councillor Hollett. Right, okay, item 10.3, appointment of a council assessment panel member. So we need to appoint a member, and this looks like it's for a 2-year term. And we also need to appoint a deputy to fill in as well. Councillor Groot, if you'd like to nominate.
I'd like to nominate Jason, Councillor Wilson. I read it.
Are there any nominations for the position as panel member, first of all? Okay, we'll move on. So we also need a deputy. So the deputy's role essentially is to fill in if in the unlikely case the panel member is unable to make it. So this is again for a 2-year term. Would anybody like to nominate for the deputy position?
I'll nominate Councillor Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have we got?
So it's a 2-year term.
I do have some questions about this. We'll just wait until we come back into session for
What was the question?
the particular item. It's about the cap. So one of the things about the cap is they're supposed to feed back to the assessment manager some of the pinch points and issues. So I was reading about how you can manage the cap and we're quite limited. So in terms of termination, so for example, there's some interesting comments in the report from the assessment manager about the city of Prospect and how they're perhaps unhappy with some of the outcomes. And I'm just trying to look at, we can't rehire at this point. So we've actually got some CAT members that are in there for another 2 years and then another 4 years. So I'm just interested at that. Okay, at what point are we feeding that information back to the current city members? So it might be something we'll do in session. I don't know.
I think so, because we're talking about the positions at the moment, and that can be part of the discussion. But thanks for
So it's
raising that
just-
point.
I know the assessment managers here, so I just want to
Yeah, I think that
raise it.
that belongs as part of the discussion of the motion. Thank you, councillor Backer. Item 10.4, the City Prospect CEO Performance Review and Development Committee. So this is a 2-year term again. So let me just read this last part. So the mayor and deputy mayor, according to the recommendations, are on this panel automatically for 4 years. Councillor Backer, you've got a question?
Yeah, I have a question about that because we've been looking at it for the deputy mayor for 12 months. You're either wanting to through, because obviously the CEO review panel is quite sensitive and obviously you don't want lots of members on it. I'm just wondering if it's better if you remove the deputy mayor heading and just put 3 councillors on it for a 4-year term. It would be an amendment to the motion.
I might ask CEO whether there's any protocols or policy around that, or whether we can make a decision on that. If you want to.
Given my clear interest in the matter, I might defer that to the governments. I may do.
So in relation to, as it would be an amendment, it's the review of the chamber to determine how long the deputy mayor is on the committee for. Given that it's currently, there's a feeling from the room that the deputy mayor position is right here, we just need to amend that resolution.
Councillor Gray.
So just looking at the terms of reference, the terms of reference actually refer to membership be of a 2-year duration for 3 members and 4 years for 2 members, which actually suggests 5 members. And that's highlighted. I'm not sure why that's highlighted, maybe because that's not in step with practice. But that would actually deal with Councillor Backer's issue, although I have a separate issue along the same lines, where I presume the 3 members. No, I'm sorry, I won't continue that long conversation, but it does say there it allows actually 5 for some reason. So,
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
Again, at the risk of, and full disclosure, given the nature of this committee, but terms of reference do refer to the mayor and deputy mayor being on the committee for that 4-year term. The challenge there, of course, being that the deputy mayor may turn over, which is a clear inconsistency in the terms of reference. It's not something, because we're not looking to amend the terms of reference. We did pick up on that as a staff body, and it's clear that there's going to be a change required there unless the council is minded to appoint the initial deputy mayor for the term of 4 years, or to recognise through an amendment that that's not what council's intention is, but rather whoever happens to be the deputy mayor of the day will be sitting on that committee. Now, there are obviously benefits and drawbacks to both sides. It seems to me that the intention of the drafters of the terms of reference when they were created was to create some continuity on the committee for the 4-year term, but also to enable some turnover and opportunities for other members to experience that forum. Members, it is open to you to consider an amendment to the terms of reference to clarify or correct that. But as I read it right now, the mayor and the deputy mayor of the day, which appears, Councillor Group, to be yourself, will be appointed for a 4-year term. And that's how I would read that, similar to governance. And then the other 3 members are appointed for the 3-year term. So in essence, the mayor and deputy mayor, you don't need to vote on them because the terms of reference already appoint them, which is, I think, why wording is as it is. But members, that is open to you to consider an alternative approach.
Councillor.
Just a question on I'll carry on that one, CEO. So obviously, I potentially now have an interest in this as potentially the deputy mayor that gets through. So if the deputy mayor is appointed for 4 years, is that me being appointed for 4 years or position being appointed? Because that doesn't deal with the turnover issue.
So
Because I would express an interest in being on this committee, but not just the 1 year.
Yes.
Mm.
So again, similar to governance, my understanding of how I would read this is you're appointed the deputy mayor today.
Yeah.
And this resolution appoints you as the deputy mayor of today.
Yeah.
For a 4-year term. So that in other words, even though it says the deputy mayor in the terms of reference, you are the deputy mayor at the time this resolution is passed. And even if you lose the position of deputy mayor next year, you will remain on this committee. Similar to governance, would that be your view? I know there's potentially some grey here, which is why I think it's important.
Because then the new, you get a new deputy mayor.
So there you go.
So then you have the potential for different people.
Members, can I suggest you clarify that through your resolution?
Yeah,
Because if the two of us can't get it right, then what chance does anybody else have?
and just on that, the deputy mayor, it deputises the mayor, so if the mayor is away, then the deputy mayor deputises for him. Is that correct? On there.
Unless you've got a deputy mayor, then
Yeah.
it's just gonna leave you with one short.
I mean, it all starting to get a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
I think we're looking for nominations at this point in time, and when this motion comes onto the table to be voted on, I think we should then seek an amendment if we so choose. That's
Can I
okay.
foreshadow an amendment?
You got some words prepared already, no doubt, Councillor Green.
By the time we get to it.
Fantastic.
Mm.
All right, so that having been said, I'm just going to mark myself in as one position. So do we have any nominations, whilst we have to sort that out through the amendment process, do we have anyone else who's interested in being on the CEO Performance Review and Development Committee? Councillor Nguyen. Councillor Tweed Nguyen, I should say. Councillor Barnett. Councillor Root. Anybody else keen to?
I don't nominate Jason. Councillor Nielsen.
Okay, so we've got 5 nominations for 5 positions
Mm.
as it is anyway, so we still need to work out whether that amendment affects anything, but thank you. Those people who nominated.
Did Alison?
No, Alison nominated
Oh,
Councillor
right.
Nelson.
2 years. You can give it back.
That's no problem.
Item 10.5 is the City of Prospect Strategic Planning and Development Policies. Oh, it's moving there. Committee, and we have. I'm trying to see whether we have a time period here, unless it's written up in terms of reference. Whilst the CEO is looking for that, so we have the mayor is on this committee automatically, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 other members for the term of council, so it's 4 years. So I'm looking for people who are keen to be on this. I saw Councillor Groot.
No,
sorry.
I just nominated Councillor Rebecca.
Okay.
I have no
Yeah.
interest in this committee.
Again,
Respectfully, respectfully. I've done it once, that's enough.
yeah, again, could we decide the term of council, or the term of this?
Well, it says for the term of council.
Yes,
in-
but I
in-
mean,
Which
we
it
can,
would change that.
we can change
2
that.
years.
I just again think we've got new,
Yeah, I think
as councillor Bax pointed out, we've got new members on here and, you know, I just find it, I suppose probably useful, you know, for them to get a grounding and then be able to have an opportunity. To take
Or
part.
shadow amendment.
Yeah,
1.5.
yeah, so except.
I guess we need to think about the pros and cons of that, and I'm not trying to sway you either way, but on the upside, a rotation gives more people an opportunity to be exposed to that part of what we do. On the downside, it's probably the sort of thing where you build your knowledge up over a number of years to become more and more effective as time goes by. So we can discuss that and we'll see where the amendment.
You get an overlap, so you might get some people to stay on and you get a couple of new people, so. But it's for 2 years, and the thing is elected members even if you're not on the committee, because it's public, you can actually sit in on this one, I believe. So
Mm,
you can come and listen, and the next 2 years, if you want to go on it, you can come on it.
yes. So the mayor, sorry,
Well, let's,
the mayor could be for 2 year, term of council, and then I can have it in two years.
all right, well, when this comes onto the table, then we'll.
Yeah.
So, amendment foreshadowed, we can,
Mm-hmm.
vote on that at that point in time.
Mhm.
But thanks, councillor Barnett, for raising that point. Item 10.6, council subsidiaries membership. I think it's worth noting,
I'm sure we got all the.
But yeah.
oh, sorry,
So we've got the
I just
mayor.
made a few things up. All right, so we have, councillor Group nominated councillor Tobacco. Anyone else keen to be on this committee?
Oh,
I'm
If-
happy to sit on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Can I nominate councillor Fox?
Yeah, could be nominated.
And-
Room for one more.
We're, I don't mind continuing on, you know, and then be happy if it's a 2 year term to ballot some another elected member come on.
Okay, no worries. Now we can move to item 10.6, and I get to say subsidiaries again. Council subsidiaries membership. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention the information that was shared earlier on today, which outlines some of the other opportunities there are to be on steering committees and to represent the council in different ways, including QPAR, PAN, Access and Inclusion Community Advisory Group, as well as Lindy Kamunka. So these ones will be coming to us in the December meeting. So if we kind of put those together with item 10.6, there are opportunities for people to get involved in quite a few different areas. So if you weren't fortunate enough to nominate for this position, then I'd encourage people to keep an eye out for those ones coming back to us at the next council meeting. Having said that, so this membership is for the Eastern Health Authority Board of Management, Eastern Health Authority chapter. It's the longest name come across. This is for a 4-year term, unless someone, of course, would like to foreshadow an amendment, and we can just reuse the other amendments.
So I'd just like to, so this is the Eastern Health Authority Board, is that the one we talked about?
Correct, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because having been on that for quite some time, but I'd like to point out that you know, there are two sort of recommendations, but the City of Prospect and Campbelltown are now the only two councils, and the other one's Burnside, Walkerville and Burnside, Norwood, St Peters, and so 3 of the councils currently have reverted back to having 2 elected members. So they have 2 elected members. So we've only got Campbelltown and Prospect, which now has the which has a director or staff member plus an elected member. So I would like us to revert back to having 2 elected members on there.
And deputy.
And then, yeah, and then there's the like deputy 1 and deputy 2. So there are opportunities then for elected members to be on that.
It doesn't appear in the recommendations that we're looking to appoint a deputy, but I'm pretty sure I read in the papers that that's the case.
Yeah, it's
Am I
in there.
missing something, or are we missing something in the recommendations?
Proxy for, yeah.
No.
It's in health authority, this is not. I thought it did have deputy 1, deputy 2.
Ms. Mayor, could I inquire of the Director of City Growth and Development as to whether or not we require a proxy for EHA?
So how would we look at varying that from what it currently, or just voting on that recommendation or suggestion from councillor Backer? Because currently it's a director and it's an elected member, and councillor Barnett is suggesting that we don't have a director, we have 2 elected members instead.
Yes.
Is that an amendment to this motion?
So through you, Mayor Larwood, the recommendation as it currently is for 1 elected member representative. Right now, the second board member is resolved by council is the Director, City Growth and Development, appointed by resolution a few months ago, I believe. Councillor Barnett was confirmed shortly before the election, until the election. It is open to council to consider, instead of sending the Director, City Growth and Development, sending 2 elected members on to EHA. I won't speak to the merits of that necessarily unless I'm invited to do so, but it is open to council to do that. And yes, the current recommendation would need to be changed and a different motion put forward, either by way of an amendment if the recommendation is moved, or by way of a motion if council are minded to just go that way themselves. Does that make sense, members?
Mhm.
Okay, so you mentioned, so are we happy with the CEO providing some context around that, because you said that you would if invited to?
You invited me to, Mayor.
Well,
Mayor
it's
Larwood?
open to the table.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on the value of the director being present, yes.
Sure. So I'm not, I have not attended EHA board meetings myself, but I am familiar with the business and how it operates. For those members who are not, the Eastern Health Authority is a joint venture of a number of the Eastern Region Alliance of Councils. It delivers a range of services to our communities, including immunisation, but also directly to council in the form of food inspections, hoarding matters, deals with those sorts of things for us. It is an exceptionally useful body to us. It means that we don't have to hire a bunch of rangers to do those works, and we can share those resources with other councils. And as a consequence, there's plenty of modelling to demonstrate that we get significant value far and beyond what we actually invest into EHA as a joint venture member in terms of economies of scale. The services are shared between the councils, and they are difficult services that require specialist skills that we couldn't bump in ourselves and hope to deliver the same outcomes for. Pros to having a staff member on EHA are a range of them, and I can speak to a number that are fairly recent and ongoing issues. We get regular questions from the community and from, in fact, elected members around specific concerns around food premises, hoarding, and the like, which require direct engagement with EHA. Now, with or without board representation from a staff member, we can get those done. But it does help if you've got a staff member who has current and ongoing and I guess up to the minute knowledge of those operational matters and can bring them to the board and apply a little bit of pressure where necessary to senior levels of the board to progress those sorts of matters. Having said that, I see plenty of merit also in having multiple elected members on the committee. I also though see the benefits from both the knowledge of the community and the, I guess, advocacy for your communities, having an elected member representative, but maybe having the mix. Members, honestly, it's a matter for council to consider what is preferable. Councillor Barnett can speak to her experience, maybe in relation to those councils that have 2 elected members on the board, and I guess the added value she sees there. I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
So that's probably the limit of what I.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just point out that there's already liaison staff that are liaison and contact officers, so that the Eastern Health Authority staff contact that particular staff member. I don't know who it is in Prospect. So you already have that link there. And when it first started out, it came about more because of some things that were happening, and now that sort of died down. And so now that's why the 3 other councils have said, well, it's not, we don't need to send a director or a staff member, because we already have that person, that liaison person in there. And so reverting back to having the 2 elected members I've got on councils.
Thanks, Councillor Barnett. Has anybody else got any thoughts on this? councillor.
So is there the opportunity to have a shorter term for the elected member and a deputy elected member? By what they much
It's in your hands. Yeah, if that's the,
It's the charter, so we can't. amend this.
No, it's a charter.
sorry,
the charter.
It's in the charter. I don't know if we can-
There's already a deputy mayor.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the charter doesn't allow for a proxy. You can have one elected member must be appointed, and then the second member can be an officer or an elected member, in essence.
And then there's a deputy. as
No, there's
well.
no deputies, no proxies. Two,
Right.
one must be a member, one may be a member or a staff. That's it.
okay.
Yeah.
From the chair, I can see merit in both models. I do like the idea of a senior staff member being part of that group. And I've never been on that board before, so I'm not quite privy to the conversations and therefore what the various benefits are, but that's my thoughts personally. Test the waters on that. Yeah, as part of the debate.
Just, may I say one little thing? I was under the impression, and it's changed obviously, that there was a deputy. I was going to put myself down for that. I have, and I do apologise, I have very limited opportunity through my work to be on any of these committees. I sometimes work through to 11 o'clock at night, quite often it's 9. So I apologise that I haven't put my hand up for any of these. It's just work commitments get in the way, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Thanks.
And,
Councillor.
and also, I think it said in there that Eastern Health Authority meets twice monthly. That's not correct. We
Didn't know
meet,
that.
about 5 times a year and have, with budget, so there might be another extra.
Yep.
Monthly, meeting.
Cool. Thanks for that clarification. Councillor Barnett.
All
right.
right. Bi-monthly, sorry. Sorry, it's bi-monthly. That's a typo, my apologies.
All right, well, guess, is there anybody else anyone else amongst the elected member group who would nominate if there was the mood to look for an amendment during the debate, or have we just got the one nomination at this point in time? Trin? Yep, great, excellent. Fantastic. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the discussions. So I might bring us back into session. And looking at item 10.1 is the appointment of mayor. Councillor group has been nominated by Councillor Standen. Do we have a mover?
Can I move that as a nominee?
Yes, and you can talk to that for up to 5 minutes if you should need that much time.
I will say very briefly, I think councillor group has the experience and also the desire to be a deputy mayor, and I think he may be very good in that position.
Thanks for your brief summary. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Tween Wynn,
Happy to support the approach.
would you like to speak to that? Yeah, 5 minutes if you need.
Wish you all the best.
Sorry, Mayor, before I order for me myself, I've just realised I have a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Is there an additional payment?
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So-
Through you.
So through the mayor, I believe the report speaks to that. Nobody has an interest in voting on these matters. You are entitled to stay and vote for yourself if you wish. Obviously, given that there's no ballot here, you may choose to take a walk, but you don't need to.
Sorry, I missed that in the,
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking, hang on. Okay, I'll take the advice and I'll stay.
No problems. Okay, would anybody else like to talk to that motion? Councillor Bennett, I thought you had
I'm
something.
just waiting to clap.
Okay, that being the case, Councillor Sand, would you like to sum up?
No, I'll leave it to the.
Thanks for your excellent summary.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Congratulations. Councillor. Getting more onto the board for the longest serving deputy mayor. That's what it's all
It's not
about.
consecutive anymore, it doesn't matter.
Unanimous. Okay. Great. Item 10.2, City of Prospect Audit and Risk Committee. So we have two nominations, Councillor DeBacker and Councillor Holland. So we will now hand over to the team leader of governance, acting as the returning officer on behalf of the CEO, I believe, and we'll conduct a secret ballot. So everyone votes. If there's a clear winner, it's a clear winner. If there's a tie, then the name that's drawn out of the box is, don't use the word losing, excluded, and the other person is the winner. So I'll hand over to the returning officer.
Has everyone got a pen?
No. Sorry, Mayor, can you just remind us of the candidates?
Councillor DeBacker and Councillor Holland.
One. Yeah.
Everybody votes. Yeah.
You have no.
Oh, no, there's one of these, magically.
What do you think of Saturday?
I hate it.
That's a good thing.
Let's do it, sure.
Inbox members?
At the bottom.
Why? Why? Click on options. Yes.
This is it. Fair enough.
And now we have 9 votes. And we have a clear winner. We have 3 votes for Councillor Hollett and 6 votes for Councillor DeBacker.
Thank you. Okay, we're talking about a year. We have to vote on that.
Yeah, so move, to move of a motion.
Yeah.
And you just change the term.
Okay, so I'd like to call for a mover for this motion.
So
Councillor Bird, sorry, to speak to the motion.
Look, just the audit risk is actually a really important committee within the council, and I think it's great that there was a ballot for it, because I think previous years it's been the last person who stepped backwards with it. So I think it was great. We had 2. Congratulations, Councillor DeBacker and Councillor Hollett. Hopefully you'll have an opportunity later on the council to live and breathe all things audit risk.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Do we have a seconder?
Why that it is confirmed that that's a 1-year term.
Yeah, I was going to. So you're just confirming that we've agreed that it's going to be for a 1-year term?
Sure, that's fine.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that. So,
Sorry, I saw Councillor Tweena Wynn's hand go up first. Councillor Lewin would like to speak to
Yeah,
the
just
motion.
second it. I agree, this is a very important, community to be a part of, especially during, budget time. I think the information is really important, and I want to thank you, Councillor Holly, like, feel free to come to the meeting and sit and watch and learn because it's very interesting.
Thank you, Tweed. Do we have any more speakers?
Question through the chair. Just in regards to the motion, it says resolves Mayor Larwood and Councillor De Backer with the intent of the motion that Mayor Larwood is for a 4-year term and the councillors for 1 year. Because someone can maybe make an amendment to that effect if it sits in the terms of reference.
Just period. So through you, Mayor Larwood, the
Very lovely.
yeah, Larwood.
One.
The muscle memory will develop.
Yeah,
in this. Through you, Mayor Larwood, the terms of reference do automatically appoint the mayor for a 4-year term. So you don't need to include Mayor Larwood in point 3 of the motion. So I guess through you, Mayor Larwood, if you were to invite the mover and seconder to just remove those words from point 3, I'm sure that would be accommodated.
The mover and seconder are okay with that?
Can't ask a question, can I?
Unfortunately, can't ask a question now.
Can I, sorry, could the CEO just clarify what we're removing?
The words for Mayor Larwood end,
Change of member
Oh,
to
okay.
or Mayor Larwood end.
Yes,
Is the seconder happy with that? Thank you. Okay, thanks for the question. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favour? Against? So moved. Congratulations, Councillor Group and Councillor Tweena Wynn. Round of applause.
no,
Sorry.
Councillor Backer.
That's what did I, sorry, I've got a second down there. Almost took that one through.
Had a slip something very bad.
Okay, so item 10.3. Appointment of council assessment panel members. So we've had a nomination from Councillor Nelson, and we've had nomination from Councillor De Backer to act as deputy. Given that we've only had one nomination for each position, there's no need to have a ballot. So can I call for a mover, please?
So,
We don't have a proxy.
What says?
Okay, oh, it is. See, first. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Bennett, would you like to speak to the motion?
no,
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stannon, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Backer.
Just probably quick clarification and sorry, and Councillor Nelson for nominating as the main member. Just to clarify with bullet members that obviously development is quite a contentious thing in our area. We've been developing quality of development, impact of traffic, all those kind of things. Anyone, even the deputy or proxy that's on the council assessment panel can't under any circumstances talk to people that have had an application. So just be aware when you're circulating emails that you can't include the people that will be on the panel in those that correspondence. Otherwise we have to remove ourselves from the decision making. So I just thought I'd take those opportunity to clarify, because it is a very serious, because that's actually a separate decision making body, separate from council. So
Thanks for making that clarification. Councillor Backer, any further discussion? Councillor Group.
sorry, just picking up on Councillor Backer's point, it would be helpful to know if Councillor Nelson isn't able to go to a meeting, Councillor Backer is, so that we'd be aware of that. I know that's logistically a bit difficult, but maybe if it is possible to circulate to us, so we can make sure we're not contributing to a breach of policy. So it's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Group. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, Councillor Bennett, would you like to sum up?
no,
Thank you for that. All that, let's now vote on the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, item 10.4, City of Prospect CEO Performance Review and Development Committee. So the report is there, recommendations on page 23. We had nominations. So the mayor is on there for 4 years. We had nominations from Councillor Tweenawin, Councillor Barnett, Councillor Grigg, and Councillor Nelson. And that's the 2, 3, sorry,
I said, that's all.
there was a suggestion that someone might move an amendment.
Well, I've given some words to the secretary.
Okay,
But that'd be moved first.
Yeah. okay, so do I have a mover?
I'll move it to get it on the floor.
Councillor Stannon would like to speak to the motion.
No, not at this point.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Baker would like to speak to the motion. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Green,
I'd like to move much, an amendment, please, Mayor.
fantastic.
So I have, I'm not sure if the words will flash up on the screen in a second, but I've moved a couple of amendments in the resolution, in the recommendation. The first, look at the okay, it's up there. So number 5. So what I'm suggesting is that we resolve that 3 members be, sorry, that's not quite my amendments. There's just an extra name that was up there. So what I'm resolving, what I'm suggesting is resolve 4 councillors, 2 members of the CO Performance Review Committee for a 2-year period, and Mayor Larwood delete Deputy Mayor as member of the CO Performance Development Committee for a 4-year term. And consequential to that, I've also made a suggestion that the term of reference section 3 membership be changed, which is effectively deleting the term Deputy Mayor and the number 3, and we change it to 4 council members, and then just have the Mayor as presiding member of the committee. In the absence of the Mayor, an alternative member will act as presiding member rather than Deputy Mayor. So that's, I'm not sure if that can be brought up as well. I've also provided that change to I could probably very quickly just email it. That's helpful. So what I'm trying to do by through the amendment is remove Deputy Mayor as a 2-year term, sorry, a 4-year term member, and just have the 4 councillors. The subsequential change to the terms of reference, which refer to the Deputy Mayor acting as the presiding member of the committee, that if the Mayor's not there, I think is unlikely ever to be actioned anyway, because I would suspect if the member wasn't able to be there for a CO Performance Review Committee, but they've been on this committee for a long time, the meeting would be changed. So
Yeah.
I don't think that should hold us back in terms of the leadership. So.
Yeah.
And I've just emailed what I've just emailed to Cheryl.
Yeah.
You'll see the terms of reference change. So
So we're just waiting until we can get that up on the screen. Okay.
just on what's going out there now, perhaps a question for CEO. I didn't suggest that because I thought recommendation 2
in terms of the administrative amendments.
Yeah.
So,
well, 2 says as per the attached terms of reference, and the terms of reference are evident. It should, I thought the motion pick that up. But I'm happy if for clarity we need to have that
subject to minor amendments. That's the
I'm not sure it's more.
it's not major. I'd be prepared to do it on that basis. And knowing what you put to the team leader governance, I'd be prepared to make those changes. Yeah, I'm just concerned though that public reading this resolution down the track, you know, I would may not.
Just be, and it's amended terms of reference, and then don't have attachment.
would then enable us to remove point 6.
Okay.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Okay, so I'll now ask the mover and the seconder if they're happy with that. And it's a yes and no only. Remember? Yes, Councillor Shannon, happy with that?
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, now,
Christina.
so we'll just wait till we get the names in there. Very Christine, Councillor Group and Councillor Nelson. Okay, now, move and seconder have spoken. In the interest of time, does anyone have anything to say that hasn't already been said?
Write that
I
one.
like that.
It's written down here. That's code word for any further debate, but if there's nothing new to bring to the table, then we don't need to necessarily rehash. Fantastic. Would the mover like to sum up?
No,
Fantastic. Okay, all those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Congratulations, everybody. Okay, moving on to item 10.5, City of Prospect Strategic Planning and Development Policies Committee. Recommendations are there in front of you. Reference. Okay, so we have nominations. The mayor is there. So Councillor De Backer, Councillor Hollett, Councillor Nelson, and Councillor Barnett. For okay, so we'll just, and that's the appropriate amount. Okay. Do we have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Stanton. Councillor Stanton, would you like to speak to the motion?
no, thank you.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Back.
I'd like to move the amendment.
Okay, have you forwarded the words on to?
It might be up there already.
Okay.
It was just to change the term of council for to 2 years. Yes.
Yep, does that reflect your?
I think, yeah. I didn't realise it had already been changed.
Okay, are the mover and seconder happy with the amendment? Happy.
Oh, yes.
Okay, in the interest of time, does anyone have anything to say that hasn't already been said? Fantastic. If that's the case, Councillor Group, would you like to sum up?
I think enoug's been said.
Fantastic summary. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you for your relations, everybody. Item 10.6, Council Subsidiaries Membership. Report on page 48 to 51, recommendations on page 48. Do I have a mover? Councillor Group. Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stanton. Would you like to speak to the motion? Is there any further debate?
Sorry,
I'd like
just
to
before
move the amendment.
Sorry, can I withdraw my moving? We haven't actually got to Councillor's name.
Oh, sorry.
There's 2 nominations.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we did have 2 nominations. for one position, so I'd like to call on the returning officer to,
But
Okay.
before we go there, I mean, we discussed about, having two, I brought up about having two elected members instead of the one elected member and the director. So, where is that going to be able to be put into this?
well, I guess that we need to do the secret ballot. And then
But that's not
You can
resolving,
then-
that's not resolving the fact that, about having two elected members on it and not having an elected member and the director.
So as I was going to say, if we, I'll run this past the CEO and see what his thoughts are. If we have the secret ballot and then we are then voting on the recommendations, and then someone could move an amendment to add an additional elected member position. CEO, how does that sound?
Through you, Milo, there's a couple of ways you could do this. And it really depends upon the chamber and your view as chair in terms of how you'd like to run it. My personal suggestion would be that you deal with the question that Councillor Barnett has asked you to raise first through a motion to determine whether or not council will appoint two elected members to EHA or a single elected member to EHA. That I take Councillor Barnett's point that running a secret ballot and then potentially having to run a second secret ballot or just a direct appointment, it's probably worthwhile discussing whether it's one or two first.
Yeah.
And then once you know if it's two, if you've got two nominees, you don't even need to run the ballot. So it's a matter for you though.
Sounds like a good approach.
Yeah,
So we would need a motion in the first instance to,
Well, I'm not sure, do we already have a motion moved and seconded on the floor or not?
We do.
Well, then you would need to invite them to withdraw if you were going to go down a different path. Or alter their motion to discuss, to either have a single elected member, in which case then you're going to have a secret ballot, or two elected members if the mover and seconder are reminded.
That would be to amend the motion that's already on the floor.
Unless members are willing to vary it, which was what I was suggesting now. If the mover and seconder are not willing to vary it, then they're clearly committed to a single elected member, and then it would have to be voted down or amended in order to go that way.
so would that, then that discussion point become the first recommendation?
Yes. Yes. So they have a freedom to make this decision. Yes, and that's what we're talking about. So again, members, the current motion is on the floor. You receive a note, and having considered, you appoint presumably, well, we've got two names. So until you've actually done a ballot. Actually, no, it says the Director of City Growth and Development. So right now, this motion can't proceed until you've performed a secret ballot.
Or we vary this motion?
Which you would ordinarily do before you moved and seconded this motion if you were minded to proceed, which again brings me back to the challenge. Right now, you don't have a name unless members are minded to debate the question of who that person should be, which is not in accordance with our voting procedures.
So do we need to ask the mover and the seconder to withdraw their moving and seconding?
I would suggest right now you have a motion that's arguably, we can't give effect to it if it's passed in the current form. So I'd suggest that you probably have to invite them to let it go. And then have the discussion around whether or not it's one or two elected members. Or whether it's one elected member and the director, or it's two elected members and not the director. I think once that question's resolved, then you can move to the next step.
So when you say discussion, do you mean that we vary this motion and vote on that in itself first of all?
The only people who can vary the motion, mover and seconder, if they're minded to, for example, if the mover and seconder are minded to commit to one elected member, that rather than naming the person, that having considered item 10.6, council consider his membership, confirms an elected member and the Director of City Growth to be, for the term of council, and that point 3 would be that a ballot be conducted to determine who that person would be. I think that would resolve the question, would it not? If the mover and seconder are minded to commit to a single elected member representative, alternatively, they may choose to go a different way.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Move it, second.
I'll withdraw as well. Please stay.
Next step. So does anyone, okay, so we go to that again. Does anyone wish to move any motion on the subject?
Could I, sorry to complicate things, could I make a suggestion that we suspend meeting procedures for no longer than 4 minutes and have the debate as to whether who we want in there and then put the fresh motion.
Sounds like a reasonable suggestion. All those in favour of suspending meeting procedures for 4 minutes if we should need them? Unanimous. Okay. Let's say until 8:14. So the discussion is, are we moving away from this recommendation to have an elected member and a director of city growth on the board and toward 2 elected members, or are we staying with this? So I'd like to Councillor Stan and then Councillor Backer.
I think we've got 2 people who are willing to do it. It would be pretty easy to let them do it.
Councillor Backer.
I'd like to ask Councillor Barnett her thoughts. So what it sounds like is we're double dipping. It sounds like there's already contact between at officer level or director level between EHA anyway. So maybe Councillor Barnett to the board to explain the benefit of having a political elected member body as opposed to a director. I don't know if it's appropriate for Sam Leonard to agree or not. I don't want to say he's not a great.
John.
Oh, John, my apologies, John. Looking at Sam and John, yeah, I'm not saying for or against, but I would like Councillor Barnett's opinion. Why?
Yes. Well, for many, many years, over decades, it has been 2 elected members from each of the regional councils. Then there was a little bit of political hoo-ha, as I most probably think best to describe it. And then it was CEOs got together and
Not me.
no, it's going back a few CEOs and mayors, and they decided then that they want to have 1 elected member and 1 staff member. And then some time elapsed, and the ones that had the staff members decided they didn't need the staff member on there. And they went back and elected some of the councils, except now Campbelltown and Prospect, have elected or appointed 2 elected members back to the status quo of what it used to be. So now we've only got Campbelltown Council and Prospect that are the minority councils that have 1 elected member and 1 staff member. And pointing out the fact that the staff, as I said before, there are appointed staff members that liaise, and that any of the Eastern Health Authority staff can contact to find out what they need, to know, and vice versa. So there is this now swing back to what was previously the status quo of having 2 elected members on there.
Councillor Nelson.
If I may ask, if I may make a statement first, I see great benefit in having a director on a board. I think it's, my own experience having staff and director and executive level staff sitting on a board and be able to bring that information straight back to that same level within the council is excellent. I would just like to ask Councillor Barnett, what benefit do you see having 2 members on a board rather than 1?
Right, well, we're there to represent the constituent councils and report on it when it comes on to be on the council agenda. So we speak to whatever happens there. So we are the conduit of information. So we've got 2 or 3 if we go to having the 2 councillors So you actually be able to have three conduits of information. So you'll have whoever is still the council staff person, right? And you'll also have the elected members, two elected members.
So sorry, I was a bit confused. So I thought you wanted to have the director removed. Have two
Yes.
councillors put on.
Yes, we can't under the charter have three.
Like-
No,
But you only want to have two members and
Yes.
not the director on the board.
yes.
And I'm just wondering, what's the benefit of having two? What can two do that one can't?
Well, you've got
Just a
two
minute.
votes
We've
to start with.
passed our 4 minutes
Yeah.
now, so I'd like to suspend meeting procedures for a further 5 minutes, should we need them. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Sorry, continue.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm unsure of what two people can bring back for meeting rather than just one. That's-
Well, I also think can be a different reflection perception put on if you're an elected member as compared if you're a staff member as well. So there can be things that staff may prefer. And so that gets more reflected, perhaps than from an elected member perception as well. And I mean, as elected members, authority, we could quite well get an opinion from the director or CEO or whoever, and take that as well. So you're there not just to represent staff and not just to represent elected members, but it's the elected member body
Oh, so the whole.
who has the representation at the table.
Thank you. Any further debate? Discussion. Okay, so I'll bring us back in formal session. And yep. Okay, so we need a motion to include either one elected member or two. So is there anybody willing to put forward a motion as such?
Sorry, what's happening now? So, because I don't know if it's appropriate
So
on one of the names.
through the email, I would, and to the members, the question now that needs to be resolved, as I understand it, is, are you going to have one elected member representative and one staff member, or two elected member representatives on EHA? That is a core question that you need to resolve before you can determine who those members are going to be. So I think what the mayor is inviting you to do is for someone to move a motion one way or the other, and for someone maybe to second that, and we'll enter into debate on that question. If you can resolve that in the affirmative or the negative, then you'll know whether you need one or two members. If it's one, it may be that you'll need a ballot. If it's two, then there may not need to be a ballot.
Councillor Bennett. Sorry to back up.
We have to get there at least. Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes, I know. So I don't know. So this is a new motion that I'm putting forward?
Yep.
I'm assuming. So number one will be the same, having considered items. And the second part appoints two elected members to the Eastern Health Authority Board of Management Charter for the term of current council. I'm doing this to get on the floor, to hear the debates.
Nominees we received. So we had two elected members who had expressed an interest, so you could name.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So, Councillor Margaret. And Councillor Tree. And so I'll move it and then I'll speak to it, if that's okay.
Yep, certainly go ahead.
So look, I entirely value the work that Councillor Barnett has done over the years with the Eastern Health Authority, and also as our CEO mentioned, all the good work that they do. We are in obviously, you know, a changing area with a lot of restaurants. All those restaurants need to be checked. There's a lot of you know, things we probably don't want to know because I'm in some people's kitchens. And we've had issues with borders, and it's a really delicate thing to handle. And I appreciate the fact that having specialised staff that can work across the region, one, it saves our ratepayers money and it delivers value and quality service. I guess what I really want to hear now, being on the floor, is some maybe shape some reasons how maybe a staff member being on the board as opposed to an elected member being on the board could also benefit ratepayers. So that might be budgetary decisions or policy decisions that perhaps may, I guess, I haven't been on the board, so I'd really like to help understand that and what it would be for me to end up voting for the motion. But I'd like to hear the debate on it.
Thanks, Councillor Becker. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Stan, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will. I think we've always done it one way. Maybe it's time to do it a little bit differently. Councillor Barnett suggests that staff and directors have a conduit into EHAR anyway, so maybe we're double dipping by having a director there anyway. It's not as if we're cutting staff out of the process. They'll still get all the relevant information through. Councillor Barnett has a desire to be on that board, and as does Councillor Trinh Nguyen. So I think if we've got two people who want to be on there, we should give them both the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Stan. Any further debate? That being the case, Councillor De Backer, would you like to sum up?
I would. I'd say thank you again to congratulations to the board members and bringing that to our attention. And I think it is, we've got two people that want to represent our community on the board, and I'm sure they'll both do a fantastic job.
Thank you, Councillor De Backer. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Yeah. So that brings us to item 10.7, Annual Community Grants, Community Support Fund 2022-2023. So I'd like to invite newly elected Deputy Mayor Councillor Groot to take the chair.
Let's see how this will go.
Big club.
It's easy.
Okie dokie. So item 10.7, which is the annual community grants, community support fund. I'll first start to see if there's a mover for the motion. That's a standing.
I'll move it and I'll speak to it. I think it's fantastic. Even though we are pretty much, pretty hard up for cash, I think it's still fantastic that we can find money to give to community activities. And this is not small amounts of money. This is quite substantial amounts of money. I see from the applications, some have been not granted their money. Well, I mean, for various reasons, but there's a lot that still did. So I think it's fantastic. I think the more that we can do this, the richer our community will be and more diverse it'll be. I'd particularly like to make mention of the Prospect Broadview Bowling Club, who got their actual grant down to $686.40. That is absolutely asking for the correct amount of money. So I would, say that you should pass this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Standen. Do I have a seconder? Someone else?
Yeah, look, I think it's just following on from The, what am I trying to say? I think the diversity of the applicants is exceptional. Quite often we see money going to certain groups or certain clubs, but I think the diversity in this is exceptional. I think the processes the executive team has gone through and the process has been very, very good. So well done.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this, Councillor Nguyen?
I think the annual community grants have always been really popular and well deserved. And we have lots of small communities or local communities applying for it. So it really means a lot to them when they receive, small funding, but it goes a long way for them being a small group. I do have a few questions though, like for example, the Prospect Local History Group, I noticed that, and it's in the report, they put in 5 applications. Do we, or should we be capping the amount of, or the numbers of applications for these community groups? Or like, let's say, for example, next year they put in 6 applications. Like, is there a guideline, is there criteria that they should be capped at 2, 3? I don't know. Could we, can I put that question to
That's a-
the community?
That's a very, very good question to see that.
Taylor?
Through the deputy mayor. We can certainly have a look at that, or alternatively, you could cap the amount of money. So they might want to put in 3 or 4 grants, but you might think to the maximum of such as like $5,000 per community group. That could give us a bit of an easy, I guess, limit rather than stifle their sort of like innovation kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and just another question: did the elected members did we get an invitation to sit on this assessment meeting with the staff?
I suspect we didn't because it was during caretaker, but I'll
Oh,
see.
You're right, Taylor.
Through the deputy mayor, that is correct.
thank you very much. I shall support all the recommendations and encourage other local groups to apply for this in future years.
I think it's a good point for the new elected members. Normally elected members are involved in the review process. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? No, I've just got a couple of questions if I can through me, I guess. I don't know how that works. So the first question is, in terms of the process that we use to assess and promote and engage community on these grants, is that likely to be reviewed at all in the sort of before the next round? I know we've had the same process for a long period of time and often we get very similar grant applications. Are we likely to review our processes at all for the next one?
So,
Through the deputy mayor, certainly that's on our radar. We flew with the same process this time around, purely because myself and Katie were both new. So we've certainly got some ideas. Katie, who's the manager of community relations and programs, is quite experienced in the grant area, and she's certainly got some ideas as well. So we're certainly happy to bring them to you next year.
And my second question is, there was a number of applications that were requested but not approved on the basis that the organisations hadn't reconciled their last grants. Will we take the process to go back to them and remind them that they haven't reconciled their previous grants?
Through the deputy mayor, yes, we've actually undertaken an audit of all outstanding grants over the last few years.
Yeah.
So that will actually form part of that process as well, to make sure that we will close a few off. Because particularly over COVID, where there's been some underspend, and I guess community groups haven't had the opportunity to spend their grants, but we've been quite flexible and tried to work with them, even to the point of, I guess, trying to come up with an alternative that they could, I guess, deliver in that time frame. So I can, I'm actually happy to bring, I guess, that order report back to you in that the next round of grants, if you can.
I think that would be useful just so we can understand and even try and promote amongst our own networks people to do that. So, thank you. Any further speakers? Not back to you, Councillor Stanton.
Thank you for that. I just echo what Councillor Nelson said, that how diverse the range of grants and different community groups, and it really does. These grants go right to the heart of what we do for the community, and I hope everyone will support it unanimously.
Thank you. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
good job.
How do we get the
Good
others
job,
back?
Well, I can keep going.
They'll never know.
quickly.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, you sent a runner.
Item number 16 then.
Sorry,
Item number 16.
fantastic.
You've got to spend a whole lot of money.
Should have finished it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Group, for filling in there. Okay, so item 10.8, City of Prospect Annual reports on pages 73 to 126 of your agenda. Recommendations on page 73. Now there's no names. I have to get to put in here. Good. Okay, do I have a mover? Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, I actually look forward to this report every year because it's a great reflection on the activity in the past 12 months in council. It's a very good annual report, and thank the staff in particular who pulled it together. I'm not sure who's been responsible for that, but it's always a lot of work to put together an annual report and try and remember what we did and when we did and how we did it. So I just want to commend the report to the meeting and just thank staff who did that. Beyond that, I'm happy to move it.
Mhm.
Thank you, Councillor Group. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'm always very interested in reading our annual report, and I just hope, or wish that, perhaps more of our residents and ratepayers, I hope, that they will read it. And I couldn't find any typos, so well done.
I'll pass that on to our communications.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Is there any further debate on this motion? Briefly from the chair, it's a great report and it's a wealth of knowledge, and I agree with Councillor Barnett. Many of the questions that you get asked when you're out and about are in there. It'd be great if we can work out a way of, it's not easy, but more consumable to the general public, such that they could, you can access it for sure, but it's a hefty document, but very well put together and very informative. So thanks to the team for that hard work. Councillor Group, would you like to sum up?
I'd just like to make one point. For the last 12 years, Councillor Barnett, that I'm aware of, has always brought a swag of changes to the annual report discussion. And the fact that she has none this year really does bode well for the quality of the work. So,
Thank you for that fantastic summary. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.9, ordinary council meeting and council information briefing schedule report on pages 127 to 130. Recommendations on page 127 are before us. Do I have a mover? Councillor Green, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm happy just to move it to get on the table.
Right now, doesn't specify the time. Council meeting's going to begin.
Oh, sorry. Have an amendment.
Well, we just need to specify a time.
Oh, I'd like to specify that time in 6:30.
No. No.
Do we
When do you want?
Discuss that during general debate.
Let's move it to now.
That's the motion, yeah. Okay,
Gives me time.
so the time has been put in there at 6:30. Okay,
Isn't it on the 7th? So what do I-
well, this is what we're going to discuss. So do we have a seconder?
Did you read it? Sorry, we moved it.
Councillor Green moved it.
I'll have it a second.
Thank you. Councillor Tweena Wynn, would you like to talk to the motion?
Yes, I will.
Just
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm proposing also hoping I'm putting forward 6:30 and second 6:30 because sometimes our council meeting goes to really late and I'm mindful of staff travelling time to council and leaving council. So there's, you know, duty of care as well. So that's the reason why I think 6:30 would be a better time to start. And sometimes when we have our dinners and guest speakers, sometimes I feel that, you know, if we move it a little bit earlier and finish the dinner and the guest speaker starting at 6:30 would mean that we'll be starting council meeting earlier, and the 3-4 hours that we spend making decisions in here, I think will be more productive, given that we're not staying for extended period of time.
Thank you, councillor Twinwen. Is there any further debate on this motion? Councillor Barnett and then councillor Standard.
Yes, I think I prefer, because I mean, the people who work, I know when I worked, you know, being a retiree, but it was difficult if you were expected to have like get here for a meal, or even some might have meetings. Sometimes, you know, I had meetings with the mayor before, say, a council workshop or a council meeting. I would prefer that if it's for work health and safety, that we still retain the 7 PM staff, but we have an earlier closing time. I think currently it's 10:30. So I thought it would be better to have a half hour instead of starting early, and then you're still continuing on till perhaps 10:30. It'd be better to have a 10 o'clock finish to the meeting. So start at 7 and end at 10. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, councillor Barnett, councillor Stan, and then councillor.
First, I have a question. What time does that mean if we're having, what time does that mean that we have the pre-dinner?
We generally start at 6. So dinner is generally 6 o'clock.
So that would bring that back to 5:30.
Well,
Yes.
that's up for discussion.
Yeah. Personally, I mean, this is my own personal opinion. I finish work pretty close to the mark to get here for 7. So I personally wouldn't like it at 6:30, but you know, if it is 6:30, I'd have to work with it. I don't know whether we can make an amendment that we trial it for a year, see how it goes.
Well, you can't.
No, but I'm
spoken
just
to it,
a
but
suggestion.
someone else might.
Yeah.
Anything else, councillor Stan?
No, my preference is for 7.
Thank you. Councillor DeBacker.
Yeah, look, I might be supporting the motion, or I might leave it on the table, only because we're actually consulting the community. At the end of the day, it's the community being able to get here. You know, we don't have full galleries, but there are some contentious issues, and sometimes there is a full gallery. Most people need to, you know, have dinner and get their kids, will drop their kids at their mothers and give a deputation. So I think we're doing this without community consultation, so I'm supportive of it.
Thank you, councillor DeBacker. Any further debate?
Oh, can I move that?
I don't think you can.
You can now that you've spoken.
Oh.
I'll take, there are other people
Okay,
around the table who may choose to move an amendment.
to 7 PM.
So can I move an amendment, please, that we change the time to 7, or that we remain the time at 7 o'clock?
Thank you, councillor Nelson.
I have a question.
You've already spoken. Got a tick next to your name, sorry. So I'd like to ask the mover and the seconder whether they're happy to accept the amendment.
Councillor Pollard, Councillor Moon. One of them seconds the amendment, then we can proceed.
So just say again, sorry.
So either Councillor Pollard or Councillor Moon agree to second the amendment.
Yeah.
In which case we can proceed. Right.
Okay, so we need if we have a seconder to the amendment, which could be councillor Hollett or councillor Nguyen, then we can accept the amendment.
Quite happy with the 7.
So you'd like to second the amendment?
we're amending at 7, if we go to 7.
Well, you're gonna second the amendment. And then we'll
Yeah.
vote on the amendment.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're not discussing an amendment, but we're voting on the amendment. Okay, all those in favour of the amendment? Sorry?
You can debate them.
Oh, okay. All right, so would anyone like to debate anything further, if there's anything new?
Oh, I guess we just, so that's all. Yeah. it's not-
Councillor Group.
Look, just to perhaps give some explanation. Wasn't actually planning to make this motion tonight, but I was trying to just get on the table. I did have a conversation with another councillor earlier this evening around the start time, and hence why I suggested 6:30 just to see what the reaction would be. And I had lots of murmurs when I said it. I think that it works both ways, I guess, in terms of the finish and start time. So there are nights where we finish very late, and we do have staff, a number of whom live a long way away from here who have to travel, but also for elected members who normally, or most of us now, I think, around the table have done 8 hours of work during the day, and then we're doing another 6 hours at night. We can claw back some of that, and then we will have to go up the next morning to do it all over again. Trying to pull back a little bit of that time was seen to be perhaps a little bit useful. That's why I suggested it's 6:30. Obviously, we'll go with the majority, but I just want to give some explanation as to why I've thrown out 6:30 at the beginning. I should have done that earlier.
Thank you, Councillor Group. Any further debate on the amendment? Councillor Back.
If I'm allowed to.
You are.
Look, I mean, I liked, at the end of the day, we're doing this for the people who voted us in. So I don't think it's a bad idea to go to 6:30, but can we do it in such a way that we're actually consulting with our community first? So it might be something that we put out as a consultation to say, look, we're considering changing our meeting times to 6:30. And that can maybe come back to us. We might have a community reference group or something like that. Because I know for a lot of people don't knock off at 5, they knock off at 6. By the time they get home, they pick up the kids and blah, 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 blah. I know it doesn't look full, but the intent is that members of our community should be able to come here. The opposite is true. You might say, well, if it was earlier, there are people that be able to attend the voting accommodation. But I don't know the answer to that. I'd love to see some data and some feedback from our community before making those changes. So that's why I'll be supporting 7 PM. At this stage, open to changes.
Thanks, Councillor Back. Any further debate?
Am I allowed to speak or if I?
Certainly can.
Yeah, so, I think, it's up to, the staff and whoever prepares the agenda, to try and control the agenda. I mean, one of the things is that, we traditionally just have one, council meeting, whereas, previously in some other councils have 2 ordinary council meetings, so you have, shorter agendas, but then, you double up on the meetings. So I think the devil in this is quite often in controlling what comes onto the agenda and then making sure that we as an elected body, are concise in our debate and, keep things moving along. So, yeah. So I prefer to keep it at 7 PM for the time then.
Thanks, Councillor Barnett. Any further debate? Yes.
Is there
Yeah, so 10:30 is the time, but we might from time to time move to extend the meeting time to 11 o'clock at the latest, I think.
Whenever, or if it is to midnight.
Yeah.
Very,
It's fairly rare that it goes past 10:30, but it often gets close to that.
continue that explain?
No, you have to keep working through. The conversation becomes quicker toward the end of the night at times. Thanks for the question. Okay, so if there's no further debate, we don't get to summarise all those in favour of the amendment. 4, 5, all those against. 2, 3, The amendment is carried. So that now becomes the motion.
Just a question through the chair.
Councillor Becker.
Is it possible to revisit this in the next few months as something throughout to the community for consultation? Or is it 12 months?
Looking to you for some advice.
So through the mayor. No, if you move this and it's adopted, this essentially sets our meeting schedule for the next 4 years. You would require a rescission motion in that case to amend. Is that correct?
Thank you. Okay, so given that the amendment was carried, we're now voting on
Then becomes a motion.
motion. And there's no right of reply. No. Okay, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Sorry, all those in favour?
Of the motion as amended.
No, because the motion lapsed out, the amendment got.
Sorry, we're voting on the 7 PM.
We're voting on 7 PM. Yeah, so all those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 3. The motion is carried.
7 o'clock it is.
Thank you for that discussion. Okay, item 10.10, allowances and benefits policy report is on pages 131 to 145 of your agenda. Recommendations on page 131. So we have to, part A, we have to put a dollar figure in here.
Unless you elect to go with option B.
Okay. So,
Essentially.
Yeah.
With the change.
so do we have a mover for the recommendation?
Could we just suspend?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Brief question. Does the mayor want a credit card or not?
Well,
'Cause
and
that would
what's
help
it-
us determine whether A or B.
and what's it usually spent on?
I think that's in the report.
Is
Yeah,
it? Oh,
2K.
It's 2K for the year with a monthly max of 2K.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell me what it's been spent on.
Just things like-
Yeah.
Events, parking tickets.
Oh, all right.
The mayor doesn't want to have the credit card.
That's easy.
Can I'm happy to move to B.
Fantastic. Would you like to speak to the motion, councillor?
I look forward to every time I meet with you, you paying breakfast on your own credit card.
Thank you for that.
It's my contribution.
To have a seconder. Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, I think it's the way the world's kind of going, whether it's in the government world or the private world. A lot of companies now are getting rid of credit cards. It's quite simple now to put in expenses and everything else. So I think the fact that the current mayor has said he doesn't desire a credit card, so I think it makes sense.
Hmm.
Is there any further debate on the motion? From the chair, I'll be looking forward to having most of my meetings with elected members whilst out walking the streets. Therefore, there may or may not be a need for coffee or croissants and those types of things like that. I won't be putting in a claim for a new pair of sneakers or anything like that, either, just in case you're wondering.
For sure.
So, councillor Group, would you like to sum up?
Look, I think a really sensible decision around the credit card. So support it. And I'll bring my own water.
Okay, all those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 10.11 is the behavioural management policy. The report on pages 146 to 169. Recommendations on page 146. And there is no days or times or money in there.
It's just great.
Yeah, so that being the case, do I have a mover? Councillor Stannon, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's, obviously this has been debated for quite some time through the local government association and with government and other people, and I've been to some training sort of issues on all of this. And so I think it's another step in trying to make sure that there's a, good and proper behaviour, and this, I think, now spells it out a bit more clearly than what we've had before.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. In the interest of time, does anyone have anything to say that hasn't already been said? That being the case, Councillor Councillor Stannon would like to.
No, I'm happy to sit it as it is.
All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, so now we are up to item 11, general business of an urgent nature. Does anyone have any general business of an urgent nature?
I do.
Councillor Stannon.
Yep, I would like to move a motion. Is that what I'm doing? Through the chair. It's up there now. Do I read the whole thing out as the motion?
I think we should give people time to read it, given that no one's seen it. So everyone can just take a minute to review it, and you can get a chance to speak to it. Yeah.
Would it be easier if I spoke to it and gave everyone a gist?
Well, the CEO's remind me the first thing I need to do is determine if it is urgent business, and I think that it qualifies because the consultation period closes at the end of December, and I think it's better that we get a chance to be consulted before the end of the formal consultation period, or else it might feel a little bit, like we're not being given the opportunity to have our say, given that we're a significant stakeholder. So I'm happy to accept that as an urgent item. If everyone's had a chance to read it, just looking for nods around the room. Give you another 30 seconds or so. Okay, Councillor Stannon.
Yep.
To speak to the motion.
Pursuant to the little email that I sent to you all to give you a bit of a heads up, DIT, they have decided that Regency Road, Main North Road intersection needs to have something done to it. It's the fourth worst black spot in Adelaide at the moment. It also falls partly in our jurisdictions, half Port Adelaide, Enfield, half City of Prospect.
It's all ours.
It's all ours now.
Yeah.
Okay. Even I thought the part with Sefton there.
It's all ours.
I stand corrected. That makes it even more. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. It is also, that intersection is also the primary way that people of the East Ward, that is Knaresworth, Collinswood and Broadview and Sefton, is the way that they can get out north and west onto Main North Road and Regency Road, and it's the primary way that they can get through to the Northern Expressway. So it is an intersection that they have no choice. If they want to use signalised exit onto Main North Road, they've got no choice but to go through there. I go through there 20 times a week and understand all the issues that have with it. DIT are having consultation. Their consultation closes on the 31st of December. I think it's prudent that City of Prospect as stakeholder be a part of that conversation. CEO has come up with some wonderful suggestions that we invite DIT to a workshop, and also that we invite State Member Minister Andrea Michaels in for a conversation as well. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're just directing CEO to actually invite all these people, and hopefully they can come. We can have a meaningful conversation and we can actually give them some ideas, which we have, and see if we can make it a little bit safer to get out through our council area. So hopefully with all that information, I hope you support this motion.
Thank you, councillor Stanner. Do we have a second? Councillor Barnett, so your hand first.
Yes, certainly. We've sort of been aware about this sort of happening, and now it's upon us. And I'm always critical of any major consultation like this being held at the end of December, now 31st December. I think very poor timing when a lot of people are getting over all the Christmas and holidays and not thinking about putting in speeches. But it's even very important for us to be able to have a say on what happens to our green spaces that council actually owns on the north and the southern, western side of it. You know, we have two strips. We've got some tall trees in the one that's on the southern side, and we've got a very nice little park and all the rest of it, big greenery in the area. So I think we really need to be at the table on this.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Is there any further debate? Councillor back.
Yeah, I just first of all like to thank councillor Stanton to bring this to council's attention. But I feel we could actually probably think a bit further. I know years ago they had looked at that where the shopping centres are as potentially a transport hub. So obviously you've got like your tea tree plazas and things like that where you've actually got buses looping in and out. And it is potentially a mini master plan opportunity. And I'm just wondering if we need to, by way of motion, sort of look at not just the, I suppose the infrastructure aspects, but also the potential development and mini master planning opportunities. So maybe a question through the chair to the CEO, if it's something that is on the radar for economic development as well as infrastructure.
Yeah.
So through the mayor, members have been familiar that we've been advocating on this intersection for a long time, certainly well before I came here. And there were discussions with former Mayor Lachlan, myself, and the local member Andrew Michaels, now the Honourable Minister, around that site. We'd like to think that those conversations might have triggered her advocating for this to be one of those northern intersection opportunities, and that this discussion that they're now having will inform what is done with that intersection, and that clearly one of the challenges with this intersection are the constraints, in particular the development to the southwest of the intersection, that block of shops that are very, very close to the street, and also the power lines that are above ground in that location. I would suggest that the best way to drive your points home will be with DIP representatives and hopefully with the minister in the room in a workshop where you can put those views to her and to the bureaucrats directly. That's how you're going to get some traction there. Council going off and attempting to master plan a DIP intersection with significant and high value private land all around it. I mean, our interests are limited to those parks, and so our capacity to influence or at least to drive a discussion in that regard without DIP input and state government funding are obviously going to be limited. I would suggest to you that conversation is a perfect one to have, assuming we can get this workshop and this this briefing session with the right people in the room and actually drive that as part of this consultation process, because it is evident to me from the DIP call it propaganda, but the DIP material that they put out on this consultation exercise, that there is money there to undertake some upgrades, but also if you do your sums, it's not enough to do all the intersections. So I think it's an opportunity for council face to face with the bureaucrats to emphasise the importance of this and also offer options. And I think the one you've suggested is a good one. This is a difficult intersection with significant constraints, and I think master planning is the right way to go.
Thank you, Stephen. Any further debate? Councillor Greg.
So can I just clarify something the CEO said earlier, that the eastern side of the intersection is actually put away then for not crosswalks. clarify.
Through the mayor, the little garden to the north and east of that intersection is, I'm certain that is a City of
Yeah.
Prospect asset.
Yeah.
This one here.
The opposite side.
Oh,
Yeah,
eastern
the
side,
eastern
yes.
side.
The northeast is in the city of Port Adelaide.
Just to go on. Councillor
The
Stan
north and
was
south
saying
and the
earlier.
southeast, neither of those are.
Oh, that's right. This bit is not. I'm sorry.
So I
I'm
just
sorry.
want to clarify
I did
that.
want
You
to.
take more.
For the topic.
I'm not sure you do want those comments.
We would
but
like
anyway.
But on that, I just wondered whether,
No, and say,
I'm not sure whether the city of Adelaide is having a similar consultation with it, or
that's
whether
a
it
very good
makes a lot
point.
of sense for us all
Yeah.
to train them together.
That is a
And-
very good point.
And on second part of my commentary on that is, I think it would be useful for us to also invite the statement of Adelaide, even though it's not her electorate, but we are in her electorate. So I think it'd be useful just to at least offer her an invite to be there as well. So I would be happy to move an amendment to that effect. But if I don't need to, it'll just be done by administration. I'm happy not to, but it might be useful to move an amendment.
So are you happy to?
Um,
That,
I'm happy to extend the invitation. I think members, in order to give fair shrift to both Lucy Hood and to the Port Adelaide NPL councils who might be interested in this, it may be beneficial with the consent to move and second to add them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if I can then move an amendment to the effect of 0.5, advisory responsible statement of the Minister Anthony Martin and member Adelaide is good.
And the representative.
And then in 0.4, seek recognition from bid staff involved in the study, agency, in order to allow elected members from the City of Prospect and the City of Port Adelaide. And that might be enough, we'll hook for you to speak to
enough.
the
I'll have a
CEO.
chat to CEO Withers and see if we can't. We'll certainly establish if there's any interest in
I'd imagine there might be just 2 elected members who might be interested in.
ward council, I'm guessing.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
okay, so happy with the words on the screen, councillor. Mover and seconder happy to accept the amendment.
Ecstatic.
Ecstatic. Okay, is there any further debate? Councillor Twentyman.
Thank you, councillor Sanders, for bringing this to the floor. This was the material that was sent out in people's letterboxes, and I'm not sure whether people will look at this and read this, and it just says that as part of the state government's election commitment, the department is upgrading or investigating potential upgrades at the following locations to improve safety, access and traffic flow. So the intersection of Maynooth Road and Regent Street Road is one of those intersections that they're looking at investigating or upgrading. I drive down this intersection every day to take kids to school, and it is chockers at school hours, peak hours, and in the afternoon, the before after school, 5 o'clock. And a quick Google research, there were fatal accidents along this intersection. So I really look forward to the conversations, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for inviting also the member of Adelaide Lucy Hood to join this conversation, because I think it's really important, and we should be help driving the conversations so that we can get better outcomes for our city and making it safer. So thank you, and I hope you do support this motion.
Thank you. Twee, any further debate? That not being the case, councillor Stan, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Brute, for actually adding those two in. That's genius. It'll be interesting if we do get DIT in the room, just to ask them what sort of things that they're actually suggesting it might, and whether it turns out to be just hollow posturing, which would be disappointing. I mean, it's obvious that there are a few things that are deficient in the intersection, such as the limited signalised right-hand turns. At the busiest times of day, they turn them off, so people have to dive across full traffic flows just to get where they want to be. I don't know what they can do to fix it up. They're dead. They've got all the ideas, hopefully. So I hope you support this, and I hope we can actually get all these people in the room and have some meaningful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Stan. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Reports for information. So just a note here for the first timers, reports for information can be resolved en bloc. Anyone can pull out a report or reserve a report for discussion, and that is voted on. But if we do not do that, then any of these reports are voted on en bloc, and in that case, we need a mover and a seconder and a vote, and there's no discussion. So that being the case, would anybody like to reserve item 12.1? Okay, anyone like to reserve item 12.2? Anyone like to reserve item 12.3? Anyone like to reserve item 12.4? Anyone like to reserve item 12.5? Fabulous. Okay, that being the case, we're voting on block to accept all of these reports. Do I have a mover? That's the group. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Standen. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Oh. Okay, item 13. Council member reports and briefings. Has anyone got a report or a briefing they'd like to take? From the chair, I was invited to attend a meeting at North Adelaide Football Club where the AFL came to assess the ground for the purposes of considering it to be part of the currently named AFL Magic round. There was 6 representatives, some from the AFL, some from Foxtel. They looked at the ground, they looked at the facilities, they looked at the lights, had a walk around. They were very impressed with some aspects of the ground. I believe they went to almost all the SANFL grounds around the city. There's no determination as to whether they are going to have any games being played at SANFL locations or not, so none of that has been decided upon. They were impressed. Some of the barriers potentially were the fact that we don't have lights that are AFL evening rated, but I don't know whether anybody in South Australia has, apart from Adelaide Oval. The goalposts weren't high enough. There was also some concerns around the visiting change rooms, which would be the cricket club. And I share those concerns as well. But a lot of the things which were issues could be dealt with through temporary infrastructure. However, the goalposts and the lights are the 2 things which would be a significant barrier. They love the aspect with the view over the hills. They love the Memorial Gardens as an activation space before the game. So there was a lot of positives. Lucy Hood is aware of it and has recommended that we write a formal letter, as will the North Adelaide Football Club, and she will as well, supporting it. But it's not in our hands; it's really in the hands of the AFL. But yeah, it was a good opportunity, and there was definitely some positives to that. So I think if we put forward the right case overall, we could still be in consideration, but not for a night game, because there's no way that anyone can get AFL night standard lights in time. So I just wanted to pass that on, that was an interesting meeting to be part of. If there's no other member reports or briefings, move on to item 14, motions on notice. Neil, questions on notice. Neil, confidential items. Neil, if that's the case, I'd declare the meeting closed at 9:08.
Well done there, Raoul. Does he get a license or something?
Maybe my
Like a
learner's,
little certificate,
maybe my learner's permit.
little P plate.
Yeah, so-
Yeah,
It was pretty good.
Tony.
It was busy.
Yeah, it's why we didn't put more items on the agenda. You know, it's hard slog going through all those appointments.
There was lots of little bitty bits that you don't expect on
Yeah.
on the first one, which was good.
Didn't get them done. Yeah, good job. Probably, this is just me, but my flow of reading these, the reason I probably.
Councillor Nelson, how'd you go?
I would read this item.
Sweet. No, it's kind of kept myself,
Well,
I'll leave you
and
with
then
it.
remove
It's good.
the second.
It's fine.
There's always a trick, if you want something to go fast,
But if that's the case.
put your hand up to the, do the motions. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
What I might do is ask Deb to come to us first.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for,
Always lessons to learn and always opportunities to improve.
and there's probably a couple of
I would say,
other ones on these, which I won't need after a while, but it's probably more so the what happens if it's not normal,
Yeah.
like edge case. Workload,
Yeah.
get the hang.
Oh, right.
And ultimately, I don't think the stuff is qualified.
uh-oh,
Maybe
the white
checking
took one
on
home.
the information that you put in there.
I'll scan it, bring it back.
But, that was, thanks for your help.
And there's always gonna be, you can't.
I'll bring back-
Otherwise you're gonna have a chart.
Yeah,
So.
So they go. Do we keep it? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You know, if you grab that computer, you were even on the internet. You know, getting to the making sure you all those things. They're gonna be these.
And that was. That's hard.
Yeah. You can get that one out of one. Keep that one, but I don't need to keep those.
No. Just compare that to our notes.
Yeah.
I've got notes too, so just bring information with the right.
We're in the division. I was hoping, why did you call it the mission? I was going to show how it is. I read like one thing. Oh, no, that's what I said. No, so we'll see how that process. And I said yes, it's approved. It's a no. It's actually, we're all.